everyone, it's Steph here. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome to a Books Beside My Bed video. If you're new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading, and if you're very familiar with the series, welcome back. Today I'm talking about my reading week from the 4th until the 10th of April. I read a total of 13 things this week because I am on holidays and it is great. That amounted to a total of 3,157 pages and my yearly reading total is 128 books. I had 3 picture books for review this week that included Main Abijah, My Granddad by Karen Rogers, which is an own voices memoir of sorts for children by Karen Rogers, who tells the story of growing up with her grandfather, and the whole book is told in dual language, Creole and English, and it is beautiful. And Alan and Unwin has a website where you can actually listen to Karen Rogers read it both in English and Creole, and it's just wonderful. This was from Alan and Unwin, so thank you very much to them for the review copy. Then from Scholastic I had 2 picture books. The first was Move That Mountain by Kate and Joel Temple. This is another one of their books where you read it the first time all the way through one way, and then you read the book from the back of the book to the front of the book and it tells a different story. And this is all around how even small people can make big differences as you try and tackle a big problem. I also read The Gentle Genius of Trees by Philip Bunting. This is another one of his non-fiction books. This one is all about the trees and how trees help us, how they communicate with each other, how they look after each other in the environment. And it's just beautifully, beautifully illustrated the whole way through, and it's all about the things that we as humans could learn from the trees. Then we come to the books that I read this week, and because there's so many of them I'm going to be very brief. The first novel that I read this week was The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This is a romance story. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is a story that features the only one bed trope as well as a very cinnamon roll hero. There are content warnings in this book for emotional abuse as well as a possessive jerk of an ex-boyfriend, and we follow Tiffy Moore, who is in desperate need of a place to live, and she ends up finding this ad for an apartment where the current occupant of the apartment only needs the bed from 9 AM until 5 PM because that's when he is off from work. He works the late shift, and that works out perfect for Tiffy because she needs the apartment from 5 PM until 8 AM in the morning, and the two of them enter into this arrangement through Leon's girlfriend where they'll share the apartment and one bed, but they're never there at the same time. And this happens for the majority of the book. They don't meet for the longest time and they exchange notes through post-it notes left around the apartment. And it's really funny because Leon is very straight-laced and very organized, and Tiffy is just creative chaos personified. She is an editor for a small print company that produces art books, and she is constantly chasing after one of her clients who is producing a book on crochet, and she gets dragged into all sorts of situations as a result of that. But it is the story of how Tiffy and Leon eventually meet and start a relationship and how they deal with her past trauma that becomes very invasive in their lives. And it was just gorgeous. I don't actually have other words for it. It was just a really great read. And there are 2 very distinctive styles in writing for both Tiffy and Leon, so I just loved it. Then I read Queen Takes King and Queen Takes by Jolie Sue Burkhart, which are books 2 and 3 in the House of Isidore series. I was going to continue the series, except my Kindle is apparently deciding that I'm not allowed to reopen the box set that I had. I won't even download it, and I've tried multiple ways of doing it. So I finished the first 3 books, and it's an enjoyable paranormal erotic romance series. It's a reverse harem with vampires and content warnings. There's a lot of blood play in here, and also multiple partners in bed, and so many so that you sort of lose track of whose body parts are whose and whatnot. But if you're looking for an entertaining vampire story, it is definitely that. The main heroine, Shara, is one of the lost vampire queens, and she's rapidly trying to grow her group of soldiers. They're called Blood. They're called to her, and she has to decide whether or not to accept them. And particularly in these 2 books, she starts to build up a stronger group of people around her, including a king and a queen by the end of it, hence the titles of the book. But they were very fun, and I wish I could continue the series, but until my Kindle decides to let me read the books, not much I can do about it. This is what happens when you live really close by to a hospital. Then I read Heart of Obsidian by Nalini Singh. This is book 12 in the Side Changeling series. I gave this one 6 out of 6 stars. Oh, I forgot to say this at the start of the video. I'm adopting that trend that everyone has at the moment of having 6-star reads for your favorite books. 6-star read. I will not talk about this very much because I just filmed a video that's probably going to be like 50 minutes long. Sorry guys. Talking about this book, which is my first reread of it since 2018, and I'd forgotten so much about it. It is a very, 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 very dark read. It is a morality chain story. The hero does very bad things, and it's his heroine that pulls him back a lot of the time, but it was really good. Stay tuned for that video. Then I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the third and final book in the Brown Sisters series, and I gave this one 6 stars as well, because I just loved it. It's my favourite of the series, and I thought Take a Hint, Danny Brown would be hard to beat, but this one smashed it out the park. We have a curvy black heroine, we have neurodiverse main characters, we have the wonderful grumpy and sunshine trope, which I love, and it's also set in a B&B, so it's just perfect. So Eve Brown is this very sunshine, chaotic character who is constantly trying new things and constantly feels like she's failing at them, and finally her parents have had enough and they tell her to get serious, and they're cutting off her monthly inheritance allowance until she can prove that she's trying to do something with her life and to act her age. She's obviously understandably upset with her parents and goes off, and she ends up driving until she stops in this small town, and she ends up in the car park of this bed and breakfast and notices that they have a sign up because they're trying to hire a chef. She just walks in off the bat and into an interview because she's one of these characters. She's a fearless character. She just, oh, I can do that. And so she walks in, she doesn't have a resume, she doesn't have anything. She just walks in, and there she comes face to face with Jacob Wayne, who owns this bed and breakfast, and he flat out tells her no. And very few people in life tell her no. And after that, she accidentally hits him with her car, and he ends up with a broken arm. And so suddenly the B&B is short-staffed. She's asked to stay and help keep everything running. And eventually she and Jacob have to figure out a way to work together. Then they begin to fall for one another. And it is just beautiful because Jacob is very straight-laced, very formal. He likes everything done a certain way. And Eve is this very chaotic but beautiful character. And they're just the complete opposites. And it was beautiful and delightful, and it just made me so happy. The whole thing was just glorious to read from start to finish. I forgot to bring my physical copy because I went out and I bought a physical copy over the weekend because I just need to have that in my life. Then I read Up in Smoke by Annabeth Albert, which is book 4 in the Hot Shot series, which is all about smoke jumpers. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I had a review copy from NetGalley. It is a male romance, and I will give a content warning for the fact that there is the abandonment of a baby by its mother. In this story, we follow Shane, who on his birthday at the start of the book is dragged out to go skydiving with his sister because his sister has a crush on one of the skydivers that they'll be jumping with. His name is Brant Wilder, and he is normally a smoke jumper, but during the off season, he picks up odd jobs here and there. He ends up jumping in tandem with Shane. Then they don't see each other for like a year until Shane turns up on Brant's doorstep with a baby, and the announcement that the baby is his sister's child and that she had said that Brant was the father. His sister has gone off as a roadie for a musician friend of hers and left the baby with Shane, and Shane now needs help. And so the two of them spend some time together. Brant obviously wants to find out and figure out if the baby is truly his. So they go through all of that legal process and also paternity testing. But as they spend more time together, they realize that there is an attraction between the two of them, and they're looking after this little baby Jewel, who is just gorgeous. I don't normally like babies in stories, but she's sort of what their world revolves around initially, and it felt really nice. I think it's very different from some of Annabeth Albert's other books that I've read, and I can understand why some people probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as some of the other stories, but I actually quite liked it. I thought it was very sweet. I also read Broderick by Katie Robert. This is book 2 in the Sabine Valley series. I got this as an early release from her Patreon. It is coming out this week, I think. This is an FFM menage story. It is a marriage of convenience. It has both an enemies to lovers and a friends to lovers coupling in there. And the Sabine Valley series are all menage stories. It is a 7 Brides for 7 Brothers retelling. And I read the first book, Abel, just before it came out as well. I actually liked this one a bit better. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. And I was not expecting to enjoy the character of Monroe, who is sort of the chaos part of this menage, because she was the bride that Broderick chose as part of spoils of retribution, basically. And she is just a firecracker. I loved her. So the initial premise is that you have all these different factions in Sabine Valley, and that Broderick and his brothers belonged to one faction, but years earlier the other factions attacked them. They killed their father and ran them out of town. And now all of the 7 Payne brothers are back in Sabine Valley and they are planning revenge. And so to do that, they won this series of fights and they all claimed a bride or 2. And that's where we are. In this story, Broderick really wants nothing to do with Monroe because he just can't stand being around her. And Monroe has rapidly realized that Broderick has feelings for his best friend, one of the soldiers, Shiloh. She's intrigued by Shiloh, but she also knows that if she seduces Shiloh, she'll also get Broderick's backup, so it's sort of a win-win for her. So she does just that. And Broderick walks in on them a couple of times and he's not happy about it. And he's also a bit of a pain towards Shiloh and she thankfully stands up for herself. And then the 3 of them eventually settle into this relationship when they realize that maybe being enemies is just not helpful to the situation, and then they start to relax into it and have some fun, and it's very, very steamy and I loved it. I think the 2 words that I put down as my little reminder notes for this was it's chaotic fun and it was fantastic. And then the last book that I read this week was Inevitable by Jenna Hartley, which is book 4 in the Love in LA series that she's writing. This is an age gap romance. It is also an office romance and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. We talked last week about some of my limits with taboo romance. This is very much a contemporary romance with an age gap thrown into it. It doesn't lean so much into the taboo-ness of it, and that probably didn't bother me as much. The fact that the 2 characters are boss and intern did rub me the wrong way a little bit. Also, this is Dad's best friend, so that one was also a bit of a stretch for me. However, the book was actually very well written and I got this as a review copy for being on Jenna Hartley's street team and I really enjoyed reading it. I thought the story itself was engaging and enthralling and I literally sped through this book. I couldn't put it down. We follow Sumner, who has just realized that the relationship that she's in is not going anywhere. It's very one-sided and she gets out. She goes back home to LA. She's staying with her dad and his second wife and she's waiting to start grad school after the summer. And her dad organizes for her to intern with his best friend Jonathan, who she's known all her life, and he runs a very, very successful commercial real estate business. Everyone wants to work with him, even though he has a reputation of being a hard ass. He gets the job done and he's made millions and millions of dollars. So she starts there as an intern and, you know, growing up she had a crush on Jonathan because he was like almost like an uncle, but not quite. He spent a lot of time with the family, and the more time they spend together as adults, they have this mutual attraction and they're both very resistant at first. Well, Jonathan's more resistant because he knows that Sumner is his best friend's daughter and that it doesn't look good from that perspective. But Sumner points out, you know, that she's an adult. She's 23 turning 24. She's been in a relationship with an older man before and they work as a couple. They fit together, they make each other happy, they make each other better. And then of course you get all of the complications of being in such an age gap romance, particularly when the family finds out and so on and so forth. So I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was fun. I thought it was entertaining. It was a great contemporary read. You know, those little things that bothered me didn't necessarily detract so much from my enjoyment of the text as a whole. It's more just a personal quirk and preference. So those are the books that I read in the last 7 days. It's a lot, but I'm enjoying every second of it. In the comments below, let me know what you have been reading in the last 7 days, or feel free to talk to me about the books that I have read today. If you've read them, let me know. Or if you're planning on reading them, I'd love to hear about it. If you don't want to leave a comment, but you want to let me know that you were here, you could leave a tree emoji because we talked about the gentle genius of trees. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.